When Aaron stepped into the Valerian palace for the first time, he felt as if he had walked into a dream. The halls were wide and glowing, with walls that shimmered like liquid silver. Soft blue lights floated in the air like tiny stars guiding the way forward. Everything looked delicate but strong, peaceful but mysterious. Aaron had never seen anything like it in his life. Princess Leora walked beside him, quiet and graceful, still covered in her silver veil. She moved like she was used to the silent attention of everyone around her. Each guard and servant who passed bowed quickly with respect, then stepped out of her way, almost as if afraid to get too close. Aaron noticed this again and again. Most of them didn't even look directly at her. Aaron followed Leora through hallways filled with strange symbols, gentle humming sounds, and transparent curtains that opened on their own. He felt lost but tried to act calm. A few times, staff offered him assistance, but always from a distance, never stepping closer than necessary. He wondered if this was normal Valerian behavior, or if something about Leora made them act that way. They reached a living area prepared specifically for the two of them. It was large and filled with soft lights, floating chairs, and a big window showing the shining city. A servant explained that Aaron could rest here and that food would be delivered soon. Then the servant left quickly, bowing to Leora before exiting. When the room became quiet, Leora finally turned toward Aaron. For the first time since the ceremony, she spoke more than one sentence. She told him he would not be treated like a prisoner. He was free to explore the palace, learn about Valerian culture, and ask for anything he needed. She said she understood that he had left his whole world behind without warning, and she wanted to make things easier. Her voice was kind but careful, as if she weighed every word before speaking. Aaron thanked her, though he still felt nervous. He had so many questions, but he didn't know where to start. Even asking something simple felt heavy in such an unfamiliar place. Leora told him she had duties to attend to and that she would return later. Before leaving, she paused for a moment, as if she wanted to say something more, but then simply nodded and walked out. Aaron watched her disappear down a glowing corridor, wondering what kind of person she truly was behind that veil. Left alone, Aaron walked slowly around the room. He touched the smooth surfaces, tested the floating chair, and leaned against the window to look at the alien city. Everything felt unreal. He was supposed to be married now, yet he barely knew anything about his wife. She seemed gentle, yes, but she also seemed distant, wrapped in a layer of silence he could not understand. Later, a soft sound alerted him that food had been delivered. A tray floated into the room without anyone carrying it. The dishes looked beautiful. Bright-colored fruits, soft glowing bread-like pieces, and warm bowls of light soup. Aaron tasted them carefully and found the flavors surprisingly pleasant, but even the food reminded him he was far from home. As the hours passed, Aaron grew more curious than afraid. He left the room to explore the palace halls. Several guards followed him quietly, not stopping him but clearly watching. Aaron didn't know if they were protecting him or protecting the palace from him. Maybe both. He passed large windows showing the bright city outside. Valerian architecture was full of curves and flowing lines, almost like the buildings were alive. Beams of soft light connected structures like bridges. Floating platforms moved around slowly. Everything looked peaceful, beautiful, and too perfect. In one long hallway, Aaron saw a group of palace workers whispering. When they noticed him, they quickly bowed, but avoided meeting his eyes. Their nervousness confused him. He waved gently at them, trying to show friendliness, but they only nodded awkwardly and hurried away. Aaron wondered if all Valerians were naturally shy around humans. But the way they acted toward Leora made him think something else was going on. When Aaron returned to his room, he found Leora waiting for him. She was standing near the window, still wearing her veil, looking at the glowing city. She asked if he was settling in well. Aaron told her the palace was beautiful, but overwhelming. He gathered the courage to ask the question that had been bothering him since he arrived. Why did everyone seem afraid of her? Leora froze for a moment. Her hands tightened slightly at her sides. Aaron felt a wave of regret for asking too directly, but he had already spoken and couldn't take it back. Leora replied after a long silence, her voice soft but heavy. She said that Valerians respected her position and sometimes respect looked like fear. She said some people were unsure how to behave around members of the royal family, especially those who were less known to the public. Aaron could tell she wasn't telling him the full truth, but he also felt she didn't want to talk about it. He decided not to push her. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable. Leora changed the subject by explaining Valyrian customs. She told him that veils were worn by certain members of the royal family when they participated in political agreements. She mentioned that showing the face was considered a sign of personal trust, something Valyrians did not offer easily. Aaron wondered if she would ever show him her face, but he kept that question to himself. Over the next few days, Aaron tried his best to adapt. Leora continued to be polite and calm, but she always kept some distance. She shared information about the palace, the culture, and their customs. She also made sure Aaron received anything he needed. Yet every conversation felt careful, like there was an invisible wall between them. Aaron slowly learned that Leora almost never left certain parts of the palace. She attended a few official meetings but avoided gatherings, avoided public halls, and avoided any place with many people. She rarely spoke to anyone except the head advisor and a few trusted staff members. It wasn't shyness. It felt more like she was hiding her presence from the world. Sometimes when Aaron tried to walk beside her, she would gently slow her steps so he could stay one pace behind her. He didn't understand why. Maybe it was a cultural thing. Maybe it was something else. One day while Aaron was wandering near the palace gardens, he overheard two guards talking. They didn't know Aaron could understand some Valyrian words. They mentioned the youngest one being dangerous. They said she must remain hidden. They said her power had to stay quiet. Aaron didn't understand everything, but he understood enough to feel a chill down his spine. When the guards noticed him, they immediately stopped talking and bowed deeply. Aaron walked away quickly, pretending he hadn't heard anything. But the fear in their voices stayed in his mind. That night, Leora visited him again. She asked if he had eaten, if he was sleeping well, if anyone had treated him unfairly. She seemed genuinely concerned. But Aaron could see something else in her behavior. She always observed the room carefully before speaking, as if checking for danger. It wasn't paranoia. It was habit, like someone who had learned to be cautious since childhood. Aaron wanted to trust her. He sensed kindness in her voice and gentleness in her actions. But every time she approached, he also sensed something hidden, something she was trying very hard to keep under control. The palace felt peaceful on the surface, but underneath it there were questions Aaron couldn't answer. Why was Leora hidden from the public? Why did everyone fear her? Why did she always stay covered? And why did the guards talk about her power? Aaron knew he would need to be patient. Leora was not just a princess. There was something more behind her quiet gaze, something she wasn't ready to reveal yet. And soon, Aaron would discover the truth that the entire palace was trying so hard to hide. Aaron never imagined his life would change in a single morning. He woke up like any normal day, planning to go to work, planning to drink tea with his mother before leaving, planning to live a normal life like every other young man in his town. But that was the last normal morning he would ever have. By afternoon, he found himself sitting inside a government office, surrounded by serious-faced officers who would not let him leave. They kept repeating the same line again and again. "You have been chosen for an important duty." Aaron had no idea what that meant. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Maybe they wanted someone else with the same name. Maybe this was some strange prank. But the officers weren't joking. They wouldn't even let him take his phone out to call his family. They just asked him to sit quietly and wait for the delegation. Soon, the room's atmosphere changed. Several officials entered, followed by two tall figures wearing long silver robes. They were not human. Their skin had a faint glow, their movements were smooth and graceful, and their eyes were silver like polished metal. Aaron had seen aliens before on the news, but this was the first time he had ever been so close to one. And the moment they stepped in, everyone stood up in respect. Aaron wanted to stand too, but his legs felt too weak. His heart beat too fast. His mind kept asking, "Why am I here? What do they want from me?" A human official finally explained. Recently, a peace treaty between Earth and the Valyrian kingdom had almost collapsed. One wrong word, one wrong step, and war would begin. To calm things down, both sides suggested a symbolic marriage that would show unity and trust. The Valerian side agreed, but only if the chosen human was someone with a peaceful heart and no political ties. They did not want a soldier or a rich businessman. They wanted an ordinary man with a calm spirit. And that ordinary man was Aaron. He felt like someone had dropped the sky on his shoulders. He wanted to protest. He wanted to say no. He wanted to run out of the room, but he couldn't. Everyone was looking at him, expecting him to accept the responsibility. The alien representatives even nodded at him politely. He felt trapped, overwhelmed, and confused. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't special. He didn't know why he was chosen, but he also knew something else. Saying no might cause a misunderstanding between the two planets. If something went wrong, people might get hurt. That thought scared him even more. So when they asked him if he accepted, he took a deep breath and nodded, even though his voice was shaking. The Valerians told him that the marriage would be with their youngest princess, someone who rarely appeared in public. Her name was Princess Leora. They described her as quiet, gentle, and respectful. A princess with no political ambitions. A princess who would never cause trouble. Aaron felt a small wave of relief. If she was kind and calm, maybe he could survive this strange situation. After the explanation, they took Aaron to a private room where he could rest before being escorted to the ceremony. But Aaron could not rest. His mind was too busy. He kept imagining what the princess might look like. What alien customs might be like. What married life with someone from a different world meant. He didn't even know their language well. Would she understand him? Would she be upset that she had to marry a human? Would she hate him? Soon, they returned to take him to the marriage site. It wasn't a grand hall like human weddings. Instead, the Valerians had prepared a small, circular chamber filled with light that moved gently like water. In the center stood Princess Leora. Her entire face was covered by an elegant silver veil, and her hands were folded calmly in front of her. She was shorter than the other Valerians, almost Aaron's height. Her posture was graceful, yet there was something unusual about the way she stood, like she was holding a storm inside her, but keeping it hidden. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She simply waited for Aaron to take his place beside her. The ceremony was silent and simple. A Valerian elder raised a glowing crystal, and light circled around Aaron and Leora like soft ribbons. The elder spoke in his language, and an interpreter whispered translations into Aaron's ear. They were declaring unity, peace, and protection. They were binding two worlds through this union. Aaron felt the weight of those words pressing on his chest. Leora finally spoke during the final vow. Her voice was soft, almost like a whisper carried through metal. She didn't lift her veil. She didn't turn her head. She simply said the required line, her voice calm but distant. Aaron repeated his line too, though his voice cracked slightly. And just like that, the marriage was official. There were no celebrations, no music, no cheering crowds. It was more like a contract signing than a wedding. But Aaron could feel something heavy and serious in the air, like all of space was watching this one moment. After the ceremony, Leora turned to him for the first time. Even with the veil, Aaron felt like her silver eyes were staring straight into his thoughts. Her presence was quiet, almost cold, but not unkind. She simply nodded at him. Then the guards escorted them both to an alien transport ship that would take them to the Valerian palace. The moment Aaron stepped inside the ship, he realized how unprepared he was. The walls glowed softly, the chairs floated, and the atmosphere smelled faintly sweet, almost like flowers. Everything felt surreal. Leora took her seat gracefully, while Aaron clumsily tried to copy her. The guards stood silent behind them. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Aaron kept glancing at her, wondering why she never lifted her veil. Was she hiding her face because she disliked him? Or was it a cultural rule? He wanted to ask, but he was too nervous. Finally, Leora broke the silence. Her voice was gentle but distant. She apologized for the suddenness of the marriage and said she understood if he felt overwhelmed. Aaron quickly said he didn't blame her, but he wasn't sure if he sounded honest. He truly didn't blame her. She was just as much trapped in this situation as he was. She nodded again, quietly. quiet as always, then turned her face away as if lost in her own thoughts. Aaron noticed something interesting. The guards and staff on the ship kept their distance from her. They showed respect, but also something else, fear. Every time they approached to offer something, they did it with careful steps and lowered eyes. Aaron didn't understand why. Leora didn't seem dangerous. She seemed more like someone carrying a heavy secret. As the ship moved deeper into space, Aaron watched the stars from the window. He felt like he had stepped into another life, one he had never asked for. He wondered what his family was thinking right now. He wondered if they were told the truth, or if the government kept it secret. He wondered if he would ever return to Earth as an ordinary man again. When the ship finally approached the Valerian planet, Aaron saw enormous silver towers that looked like they were grown, not built. The entire world sparkled like crystal and metal fused together. It was beautiful, but strange. A world unlike anything he had ever seen. And waiting in the heart of that world was the palace where he would now live with a princess he didn't know. In a marriage he never chose, on a planet where everything felt unfamiliar. As they descended, Leora spoke again, this time more quietly than before. She said there were things he needed to understand about her, things he would learn soon. Aaron wanted to ask what she meant, but before he could. The ship landed, the doors opened, and a group of royal figures bowed to her. The moment they bowed, Aaron noticed something. Every bow was respectful, but every expression carried fear. He didn't know why. He didn't know that the girl beside him was not just the youngest princess. She was something far more mysterious, something the entire kingdom both protected and feared. And soon, Aaron would learn why. The third week in the Valerian palace began quietly for Aaron. He had started finding his way around the glowing halls, learning simple phrases in the Valerian language, and becoming familiar with the strange floating objects and soft lights that filled the palace. But even as he adjusted, one thing remained unchanged: Princess Leora's mystery. She still wore her silver veil every day. She still avoided large groups. She still moved with soft, careful steps, as if she feared leaving too strong a mark on the world around her. And the people still behaved with a strange mix of respect and fear whenever she appeared. Aaron tried not to think too much about it, but curiosity lived in the back of his mind like a quiet shadow. One evening, the palace held a small diplomatic gathering. Only a few officials attended, but for Valerians, even a small event felt formal. Aaron was invited as Leora's husband. Although he hesitated, he didn't know how to behave in their social events. The customs were unfamiliar. The hand gestures, the bows, the greetings, everything was different from Earth. Still, he decided to accompany Leora. The hall was bright and filled with soft music that sounded like wind chimes underwater. Valerian officials greeted Aaron with polite nods, though some avoided looking directly at Leora. Aaron noticed she stayed close to him, moving quietly along the edges of the room, not drawing attention. A few minutes into the event, a loud sound suddenly echoed through the hall. Lights flickered. The music stopped. Everyone froze. An advisor rushed in with panic on his face. He whispered something to Leora, and even though Aaron didn't understand the words, he understood one thing. Clearly something bad had happened. Leora turned sharply toward the exit. Aaron followed instinctively, though the guards tried to hold him back. Leora glanced at the guards and spoke in a firm tone. They immediately released him. Aaron realized she hadn't spoken loudly, but her voice carried power, enough to make trained guards step back. They headed toward a long corridor that led to the central energy chamber of the palace. Aaron felt the air growing warmer as they moved closer. Something was wrong. The silver walls pulsed with unstable light, flickering in an alarming rhythm. A sound like crackling thunder came from ahead. When they reached the large chamber doors, several terrified workers stood outside. They bowed quickly to Leora, but didn't dare step inside. Aaron peeked through the open doorway and saw a swirling storm of bright blue energy spinning in the center of the room. Sparks flew wildly, striking the walls and floor. Aaron recognized the machine inside. It powered the entire palace. It was losing control. Before anyone could speak, a bolt of energy shot toward a worker standing too close. The worker screamed and stumbled backward. Aaron rushed forward without thinking. But before he reached the worker, Leora moved. For the first time since he met her, she moved fast, so fast he barely saw it. She stepped in front of the energy bolt and lifted her hand. The bolt hit her palm, split in two, and disappeared like smoke. Aaron stood frozen. Everyone else stared too, their eyes wide with shock and fear. Leora lowered her hand slowly, her veil glowing faintly, as if reacting to the energy. Then she stepped into the unstable chamber without hesitation. Aaron wanted to stop her, but the guards held him back, not violently, but with fear in their eyes. Inside the chamber, the energy storm grew stronger, spinning angrily around the room. Leora raised both hands this time. Blue light wrapped around her fingers, moving like living strands of electricity. The storm reacted to her, bending and curling toward her like it recognized her presence. Aaron watched in disbelief. Leora didn't look scared. She didn't even tremble. She stood in the middle of the chaos with the calm of someone who had done this before. She whispered something in her language. The swirling energy began to shrink. The wild bolts softened. The spinning storm slowed until it finally dissolved into a soft glow. The entire room fell silent. Leora lowered her hands. A gentle wave of light rippled outward from her, smoothing the air, calming the machines, and returning everything to normal. When she turned back toward the doorway, Aaron noticed her veil had shifted slightly. For the first time, he saw a corner of her cheek, a faintly glowing silver mark, like a symbol printed onto her skin. The workers bowed deeply. Not respectfully, fearfully. Leora stepped out into the hallway. The guards took several steps back. No one dared speak. Aaron walked slowly toward her. He wasn't sure what to say. He didn't understand what he had just witnessed. But he knew this was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment she could no longer hide whatever she had been protecting. Leora looked at him for a long time through her veil. Then she said softly, "I think it is time you knew the truth." They walked together to her private chambers. The guards tried to follow, but Leora shook her head, and they stepped aside. Aaron entered a quiet room filled with soft silver curtains and floating lights. Leora stood in front of him, her hands trembling slightly, not with fear, but with emotion. Slowly, she lifted her veil. Aaron held his breath. Her face was beautiful, but unlike any Valyrian he had seen. Her skin had glowing markings, shaped like delicate patterns of light. Her eyes were brighter than silver, almost like small stars. And her expression was gentle, yet heavy, as if she carried too much inside her heart. Aaron didn't step back. He didn't gasp. He simply looked at her with growing understanding. Leora began to speak not with pride, but with sadness. She explained that she wasn't just the youngest princess. She was born with a rare and powerful ability, one Valyrians feared. Energy responded to her emotions. Machines obeyed her presence. Light bent around her. Her power was seen as both a gift and a danger. When she was a child, she accidentally caused a palace incident, not out of anger, but fear. Since then, many people, even those who respected her, kept their distance. Her veil wasn't just a cultural symbol, it was protection for herself and others. It helped control her energy and hide her identity. Aaron listened quietly, his chest tightening. Leora continued, explaining that her power made her a target for political groups who wanted to use her abilities. This was why she rarely appeared in public, why she stayed hidden in certain palace areas, and why her marriage was arranged quickly with someone from Eartha, neutral partner who had no connection to Valyrian politics. She said she agreed to the marriage not because she wanted it, but because she hoped it would protect everyone from those who wished to exploit her power. Aaron finally understood everything. The whispers, the fear, the distance, the veil. Leora lowered her gaze, as if expecting him to step away. Maybe she thought he'd be scared too. Maybe she thought he'd see her as dangerous. Instead, Aaron stepped closer and said, quietly but firmly, "You saved that worker without thinking about yourself. You protected everyone. There's nothing frightening about that." Leora looked up slowly, her bright eyes searching his face for fear. But Aaron offered only understanding. She whispered, "Others do not see it that way." "Then they don't understand you," Aaron said. For the first time since their marriage, Leora's expression softened. A tiny, gentle smile touched her lips, not a cheerful smile, but a fragile, grateful one. Aaron realized then that she wasn't a hidden danger. She was a lonely girl, carrying too much responsibility. She wasn't distant because she disliked him. She was distant because she feared hurting people without meaning to. Leora placed her veil back over her face, slowly and carefully. Not to hide from Aaron, but because she needed its protection. As she tied the final strand, her voice trembled slightly. Now you know who I truly am, Aaron nodded. Now I know. And I'm not going anywhere. And in that quiet moment, behind that silver veil, Leora's heart finally allowed itself to trust him, even if just a little. The truth was out now. But the danger that truth invited was still waiting in the shadows. The days after Leora revealed her true identity felt different for Aaron. Something inside the atmosphere of the palace had shifted. Leora no longer acted like a distant stranger. She still wore her veil, still moved with quiet steps, still kept her power under control, but there was a softness in her voice now, whenever she spoke to him, a quiet trust, a small but meaningful change. Aaron noticed it in simple things. She waited for him when they walked through the halls. She asked what he wanted to eat. She listened when he spoke about Earth. She didn't talk much about her own past, but she didn't run from questions anymore. Little by little, she led him closer. Even with this growing trust, the palace around them became heavier, more tense. Rumors began to move quietly like shadows through the halls. At first, Aaron didn't pay much attention, but he noticed the guards whispering more often. Advisors walked quickly, looking worried. Servants bowed deeper whenever Leora passed, their hands shaking slightly. Something was coming. Something the palace feared. One morning, Aaron woke up to the sound of raised voices outside the room. Leora was already up, standing near the door, listening quietly. When Aaron approached, she gently placed a hand on his arm, signaling him to stay back. Her posture was calm, but her fingers were tense. Through the door, they heard a guard saying, "They've crossed into the inner zone." Another replied, "The queen is preparing to address them." But if they demand the princess again, the voices lowered, as if realizing they were speaking too loudly. But Aaron had already understood enough. Someone was demanding to see Leora. When the guards noticed she was awake, they immediately fell silent and bowed. Leora stepped outside. Aaron followed, even though the guards looked nervous about letting him hear anything. The head advisor approached quickly, bowing to Leora. He looked tired, stressed, and older than usual. "Princess," he said carefully, "a political council has arrived. They claim they need a private audience with you." Aaron felt Leora stiffen slightly. "Which council?" she asked. "The High Purity Circle," the advisor said. Aaron didn't know who they were, but the way the advisor spoke their name made it clear they were trouble. Leora responded calmly. "Tell them I cannot meet them. My schedule is full." The advisor looked worried. "Princess, they will not accept that answer. They say your abilities belong to the kingdom and must be controlled by the council. They claim the marriage to a human is proof you are being hidden for the wrong reasons." Aaron felt his heart drop. So that was it. A political group wanted her power. They didn't care about her safety, her emotions, or her personal life. They only wanted control. Leora nodded slowly, as if she had expected this moment. "Prepare a safe room," she said quietly. "If their intentions turn aggressive, I will not meet them alone." The advisor bowed and hurried away. Aaron stepped closer to her. "Is this group dangerous?" Leora turned her head toward him, though her veil hid her eyes. "They believe that anyone with power must serve the state completely. They do not understand that some power is too unpredictable. Too delicate? Do they want to use your ability?" Aaron asked softly. "Yes," she whispered. "And they think marriage to a human makes me weak. They think they can force decisions on me now." Aaron clenched his hands. He hated the idea of someone trying to control her. Leora was gentle and calm, but she wasn't weak. He had seen her stop a storm of energy with her bare hands. He had seen her hold power that no machine could match. But he also understood why she was afraid. People like the council saw her only as a weapon, not as a person. Later that afternoon, Leora led Aaron through a quiet part of the palace. They reached a hidden garden filled with glowing flowers, where no one else was allowed. It was her private place, the one place she could breathe freely. She told Aaron to sit with her on a floating bench shaped like two wings. "I want you to understand something," she said softly. "No matter what happens, I don't want you to get involved with the council. They can be harsh. They can twist words. They look for weaknesses." Aaron frowned. "You think I'm a weakness?" She shook her head quickly. "No, you are the opposite. But they will try to use you. They will say things to make you doubt yourself. They will try to break trust between us." Aaron felt something warm inside him. She trusted him enough to tell him this. She worried about him. She was trying to protect him. "Whatever they say," Aaron said firmly, "I'm on your side." For a moment, Leora stayed silent. Then she said something so quietly he almost missed it. "Thank you, Aaron." That evening, the palace alarms rang. Aaron was eating in their room when the soft blue alarm lights began flashing. Guards rushed by the door. Leora stood up immediately, her veil glowing faintly with tension. The advisor burst into the room. "Princess, the council is demanding entrance to your chambers. They say they have the right to question the human." Aaron felt a cold chill run down his spine. "They want him?" Leora asked sharply. "Yes," the advisor said. "They think the human might influence your decisions. They are insisting he be examined and questioned." Aaron stepped forward. "I didn't do anything. They don't care about truth," Leora interrupted softly. "They care about control," the advisor whispered urgently. "Princess, you must let Aaron leave the palace for safety. They cannot question him if he is not here." Leora looked at Aaron. Her hands trembled. She didn't want him to go. But the council was already moving. Heavy footsteps echoed through the hall. The decision had to be immediate. Aaron shook his head. "I'm not leaving you alone to face them." Leora stepped closer to him, her voice tight with emotion. "Aaron, please, listen to me. If they take you, they will use you to control me. They will hurt you to force decisions out of me. You do not understand how far they will go." Aaron wanted to argue. He wanted to fight. But he saw the fear in her posture. She wasn't scared for herself, she was scared for him. The advisor opened a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a narrow passageway. "This leads outside the palace. You can escape unnoticed." Aaron looked at Leora. "What about you?" Her voice softened. "I will face them. I have done it before. I can protect myself. But I cannot protect both of us at the same time."
Ow.
Footsteps grew louder. The council was almost at the door. Leora stepped forward suddenly and grabbed Aaron's hand. It was the first time she had touched him directly, without hesitation. Her hand was warm, trembling with a strange mix of fear and determination. Through the veil, her glowing eyes met his. "Come back to me when it is safe," she whispered. Aaron slowly nodded. He didn't want to leave, but he understood now staying would only put her in danger. He stepped into the hidden passageway, the door closing behind him, just as loud voices filled the hall. As he moved through the dark tunnel, his heart pounded. This wasn't just political tension anymore. It was a trap meant to isolate Leora, to use Aaron, to gain control of her power. And while Aaron moved through the passage, he promised himself one thing: he would not let them take her freedom. He would not let them turn her power into a weapon. And he would return to her no matter what waited outside the palace walls. When the conspirators attacked the palace, Aaron had no idea how serious the danger really was. He only knew that something terrible was happening because the halls suddenly filled with sharp alarms and running footsteps. Guards shouted to each other, and the once calm palace changed into a place full of fear and confusion. Aaron stood in the middle of the long corridor, unsure of where to go. He wanted to find Leora, but he did not know which direction was safe. Just then, a strong hand grabbed his shoulder from behind. Aaron spun around, expecting trouble, but it was one of Leora's trusted guards. The guard looked tense, his voice shaking as he said, "You must come with me. They are after you." Aaron's heart tightened. "After me? Why?" "There is no time to explain," the guard replied, pulling him forward. They want to use you against the princess. Aaron felt a cold fear rush through him, but he followed the guard without hesitation. They ran down the corridor, trying to reach a secure room. But before they could get far, several masked figures emerged from the shadows. They blocked the path, carrying strange alien weapons that glowed faintly. Their voices were sharp and angry as they ordered Aaron to step forward. The guard tried to shield Aaron, raising his own weapon, but the attackers moved quickly. They pushed the guard aside and surrounded Aaron. Their leader stepped closer and spoke in a low voice. "You are coming with us. Your marriage is a threat to Valari. The princess must be controlled." Aaron's mind raced. He knew he was no warrior. He had no powers or special abilities. All he had was his courage and his trust in Leora. But right now, he felt small and helpless as the conspirators seized his arms before they could drag him away. A powerful force swept through the hallway. The walls shook lightly, and the air around them changed, becoming warmer and brighter. The masked attackers turned, confused and frightened. As a soft, glowing light appeared at the far end of the corridor, Leora stepped into view. She wore no veil. Her eyes were brighter than Aaron had ever seen, shining like silver stars. Energy moved around her, like living light, flowing gently but powerfully. The conspirators froze, some trembling as they saw the princess they had underestimated for years. Leora raised one hand, and her voice echoed calmly, "Release him." Her tone was not loud, but it carried a strength that shook every heart present. The conspirators hesitated, unsure whether to fight or flee. Aaron tried to pull away from them, but they tightened their grip, using him as a shield if you come closer. "We will harm him," one of them shouted. Leora's expression softened as she looked at Aaron. He could see fear and concern in her eyes, but also determination. She stepped forward slowly. "You will not hurt him," she said softly, "because I will not let you." The air around her brightened, and the attackers felt it. Their weapons shook, their hands trembling. Some stepped back, but a few remained stubborn. Trying to hold on to Aaron, one of them raised a weapon toward him. That was their mistake. Leora moved with incredible speed, faster than any human eye could fully follow. She lifted her hand, and a wave of energy pushed the attackers away from Aaron without harming him. The conspirators crashed to the ground but were not seriously injured. Leora did not want to hurt anyone, only stop them. Aaron stumbled, but remained standing. Leora rushed to his side, holding his arm to steady him. "Are you hurt?" she asked quietly. "I'm okay," Aaron breathed. "Leora, that power." She shook her head gently. "I only used it to protect you." The remaining attackers tried to rise again. But Leora stepped between them and Aaron. Her eyes glowed brighter, and the conspirators immediately dropped their weapons, realizing they had lost. Guards arrived moments later, capturing the attackers and securing the area. When everything was calm again, Leora turned to Aaron. Her expression softened, and all the bright energy faded until she looked like the gentle princess he knew. Aaron looked at her with a mix of awe and concern. "Why didn't you tell me how strong you really are?" Leora lowered her gaze. "Because I did not want you to fear me. All my life, people have feared me. Even my own people kept their distance. I thought if you knew the truth, you would look at me the same way they do." Aaron stepped closer, shaking his head. "I don't fear you, Leora. I never have. And now, knowing the truth, I understand you even more." A soft breath escaped her lips. It was not sadness, it was relief. For the first time, someone saw her as a person, not a weapon. They walked together back toward a quiet room in the palace. The halls were calmer now, with guards standing everywhere to prevent another attack. Aaron could feel the weight of the moment. Something had changed, not just around them, but between them. Leora sat beside him and finally explained everything. The reason for their sudden marriage, the truth behind her hidden identity. The lonely life she lived, kept away from the world because of her rare and powerful ability. She explained how the council feared her power, worried that she might lose control or be used by rival kingdoms. The marriage was meant to balance her influence. A human husband, they believed, would keep her grounded and reduce political pressure. But then she said something Aaron did not expect. I agreed to the marriage because of you, Irene. He blinked, confused. Because of me? But you didn't even know who I was. Leora smiled gently. I sensed your heart the moment you were brought to the palace. My ability lets me feel intentions, and yours were pure. You did not come here with anger, fear, or greed. You were calm and honest. You wished for peace, even when you were scared. That is why I accepted you. Aaron felt warmth spread through his chest. No one had ever spoken to him with such sincerity. He took a deep breath and replied, Leora, if I had known what you were going through, I would have stood with you from the beginning. I'm sorry you had to hide so much. She shook her head softly. You are here now. That is enough. Outside the room, a new wave of discussions began among the royal council. Some argued that the attack proved their fears. Others believed that Leora's power, when guided by someone like Aaron, could help unite the kingdoms rather than divide them. The future was uncertain, but for now, Leora and Aaron focused only on understanding each other. The next morning, Leora invited Aaron to the palace balcony. From there, they could see the beautiful Valerian city covered in gentle morning light. Tall, crystal towers sparkled like diamonds, and the sky had a soft golden glow. This is my home, Leora said quietly. I want you to feel like it is your home too. Aaron looked at the city, then at Leora. I never thought my life would change like this, but I'm glad I met you. Leora's cheeks warmed slightly, and she smiled shyly, a smile Aaron rarely saw. And I am glad you stayed. Over the next few days, things slowly returned to normal. The conspirators were questioned, and the council began strengthening protection around the palace. Aaron was given more freedom inside the royal grounds, and many staff members treated him with new respect after seeing how strongly Leora had protected him. He and Leora spent more time together walking through the gardens, learning about each other's worlds, sharing stories about their childhoods. The more they talked, the more Aaron saw how gentle and caring Leora truly was. And Leora learned that Aaron was brave, honest, and patient. Even when placed in a world completely unfamiliar to him, their relationship grew naturally. Not because of a forced marriage, but because they chose to understand each other. One evening, Leora turned to him and said softly, Aaron, I want peace between our worlds. But more than that, I want a life where I am not alone. Aaron nodded. Then you won't be alone. Not anymore. They stood together, looking out at the star-filled sky. Two people from different worlds, brought together by a political decision, but connected now by something much deeper: trust, understanding, and a growing bond that neither of them expected. The future would not be easy. There would be challenges, disagreements, and political pressure. But Aaron no longer felt afraid, and Leora no longer felt isolated. They would face everything together, and that was the beginning of their real story, not a forced marriage, but a chosen path.